I've been making videos on YouTube for almost 2 years now, and in that time, a lot of things have changed. I've changed as a person, I've changed as a creator, and I've changed the kind of videos that I'm making. And so I thought right now at the end of 2024 would be a good time to make some changes. So I'm gonna do the one thing that makes designers both excited and have anxiety, which is rebranding myself. Like a lot of designers, I find it really hard to rebrand myself just because there's so many possibilities that I could go with. And since I'm the one who's kind of manning the ship, it's like, well, I could do that or I could do this. And I know every, facet of my being, so there's a lot of different options and things that I could do. So it's really hard to narrow it down to just one thing. But as I'm working on my business and trying to refine my design skills, then I thought this would be a great way to do it, even if it's slightly painful. So this video is just going to be an overview of this rebrand that I'm doing and some of the design choices that I made. Now, if you're looking for a step-by-step process, this is not the video for you. I'll leave a link up here that you can click on. That way, if you're interested in a step-by-step process, you can see some of the other videos that I've made that do just that. But that being said, I do think that if you're interested in branding or design or anything like that, you'll still be able to get something out of this video, even if it's not a step-by-step process. So with that out of the way, let's go back to the very beginning. Like most design projects, and especially with branding, the very first step is to work on the brand strategy. Before working on any kind of brand work, it's always essential to gain an understanding of what the last brand looked like, what it felt like, all the details, and then as well as, where are we going? What does the future look like? What's the direction? What about the old brand wasn't working? What sparked this change in direction? What kind of problems are we trying to solve with this rebrand? Now, personally, what I wanted this rebrand to do was just reflect where I'm at currently as a designer, as well as position me as a more professional, trustworthy designer. And if a potential client were to discover me through my YouTube videos, I'd want them to see the branding that I've done for the YouTube channel and think, this guy knows what he's doing, and he does it well. And as I've mentioned multiple times, really what I've been trying to do recently is just kind of refine my skills both in the technical and the pragmatic sense. And so I want the brand to reflect that. The previous brand identity for this channel was a lot more creative and expression and experimental, which was great whenever I was doing a lot of collage work and a lot of experimental stuff. But as of right now, I've kind of shifted my focus a little bit and I want to kind of have the YouTube channel reflect that. And of course, while I still love being creative and trying out new experiments, I want to shift my focus a little bit more towards the professional. So one of my goals for this project is to kind of balance those two things of being both creative and being professional and trustworthy. And to make sure that I'm staying on track as far as the brand strategy and all of my thoughts and feelings about the subject, I made sure to make a document that just kind of outlines everything, so that way I have something to reference throughout the project to make sure that whatever I'm making aligns with the project and I'm not going off the rails. Now, the first page of this document is mostly just an overview of my principles, what I believe, the things that are important to me, just so I can kind of keep track of all those things and make sure that I'm on the right track. Branding is as much about the principles as it is about the visuals. And if you can connect the visuals to the principles, you should have a winning brand. Now, the next page is all about the brand personality. What does it look and feel like? You might have seen some similar types of graphs, but this is the one that I made just so that I can help visualize this information. Laying it out this way is just an easy way to visualize the information, as well as give me something to quickly reference whenever I'm making something, so I can always look back at this document, at this page, and think to myself, does whatever I'm making fit this feel, this personality? If not, I'm going the wrong way and I need to realign myself with the direction. Now, I just want to quickly point out that I think rows 2 through 4 particularly stand out for this project. Now, whenever I'm looking back at the old brand and kind of thinking about where I want to go, I think those 3 attributes are the ones that differ the most. I think those 3 traits are a perfect example of what I'm trying to do with this project, where I'm taking the creativity and I'm trying to rein it in a little bit. So of course I want to be friendly, but maybe I don't want to be too friendly where it comes off as like, oh, I'm just, the other design guy and all I do is creative stuff. It's like, maybe there's a little bit of formality in there. Same thing with the playfulness, where I don't want to come off as someone who's too stiff and maybe too professional and I can't have any fun, but at the same time, I do want to remain as a professional and I want people to be able to trust me and feel like I know what I'm doing. Next is the brand archetype. This is a really great way of getting a broad view of the kind of brand that you're going to be making, and it also gives you a chance to look at other brands in the world and kind of compare them. So for instance, the archetype that worked best for me was the creator type, so I can say, hey, what are some other creator type brands that I can look at and I can see what they've done? You know, does it match? Does it not match? What are some things that they're doing that make me go, oh, you know, that's something that I really like and I should incorporate that into the brand that I'm doing. Like I said, it's more of a brief and generalized overview, but it's nice to have. Next, I created a quick mood board just to make sure that the visual direction was correct. Now, if this was for a client, I might take a little bit more time on this, but this one was really quick just because it was for me. And really what this mood board is for is to make sure that you and your client are on the same page. Whenever we're using descriptive words like modern, you know, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. To me, it might mean all white and very curvy, you know, there's not any sharp edges, but to someone else that could mean it's really dark and black and sleek, has lots of hard edges. I think both of those aesthetics could be considered modern, but of course they're pretty different. So having a mood board is a great way to make sure that visually you and your clients are on the same page. Now, the next 2 pages are about my competitors as well as what makes me different. Really, this is just a brief overview of some of the other people in the YouTube space that are also doing design content, and especially what is similar about all of them. You know, what do they all do that maybe I want to try to do differently? So having all this information laid out is not only a great way to identify differentiators, but it's also useful just to kind of see what everyone else is up to, because maybe there are some things about what they're doing that I want to incorporate into the brand. And likewise, maybe there's things that they are doing that maybe just don't quite fit. But having an overview of different people in the space just gives you a lot of information, so that way you can make important decisions. You know, do you want to fit in or do you want to stand out? And you can make that decision and you have the information in order to do so. And then this last page is really just kind of a word map almost. Really, I just wanted the space just to put some keywords and descriptors, so that way I could always reference back to it if I needed to. That way I could say, hey, whenever I'm working on something, I could look at this page and say, well, is it bold? Is it experimental? Does it feel authentic? And if it doesn't, then what I'm making isn't right. So it's really just another page to keep me on track and something else that I can reference throughout the project. Now, after finishing up this document, I moved on to the Stylescapes, which typically I make, you know, 3, maybe 4 to show my client. But since it's for me and I kind of have a understanding of the direction that I'm going, I only made 1. Now, if you're working for a client or if you're not really sure of the direction that you want to go in, then of course you might want to make a few more just to make sure that you're trying out some different directions, and that way you know exactly where you're going and you know that it aligns with the type of brand that you want to have. From there, I can move on to the logo, which of course I went through my entire logo process, which if you're interested in, you can watch this video here, which will just go over all the fine details of my design process for the logos, but I'm not really going to go in depth on that here. Now, of course, I tried a bunch of different things and tried experimenting with different looks, and I actually ended up with one logo that I was actually really excited about, and that's this one right here. I liked how simple it was, and I liked the amount of contrast that it had in it. You have these really thick letter forms that make up the words, and then of course you have the little ampersand symbol that has a lot of negative space in it, so I feel like it has just the right amount of contrast in it to incorporate the contrast of the logo. Now honestly, the contrast between everything is pretty subtle. It's not some big difference, but I like that it's simplistic, and that's the kind of look that I'm going for. I want it to feel a little bit more subtle rather than I'm trying to hit you over the head with it. I think a good example would be the old logo that I had, which, you know, it's fun and creative and it's bold and experimental, but it kind of hits you over the head with that. There's no way that you can miss it, which was fine at the time, but like I said, since I'm trying to do something different, I like this more subtle approach. But once I had the logo picked out and I tightened up all the details, I could go through and make a bunch of different variables, so that way I have a logo for just about any situation I could think of. Now I can move on to the smaller, finer details of the brand, like the typography, the colors, patterns, elements, all of that stuff, which luckily I could pull from a lot of the stuff that I've been making recently or from the old brand. Like the brand color, that's something that I'm not going to change. It's one of my favorite colors, and I feel like it fits perfectly with what I'm doing here. Same thing with the typography. I've been using New Haas Grotesque for, I don't know, the better part of a year, kind of my go-to font. And so it's kind of a no-brainer, and that's what I was already using, so I'm going to keep using. And while I don't necessarily need a brand guide for myself, since the brand is really just me and I know what I want to make and what looks like the right thing, I decided to make a brand guide just so I could get more experience making them, as well as have a document that I can reference if I need to, or, you know, if the channel grows or if it becomes a studio, something like that. I have something that I can give to any employees or people that might be working with me. And then once the brand guide was finished, I could move into some of the more finer details of just kind of creating some examples of the brand out in the world, you know, like business cards, merch designs, poster designs, that kind of stuff. Of course, things will change and grow in the future, but this is just a great way just to kind of showcase and visualize what the brand can look like, you know, as it kind of, you know, goes out into the world and as you're expanding it. And as a quick side note, I'd love to know what you guys think of these merch designs. I don't currently have any plans to make merch for the channel, but if that's something that you're interested in and you guys would actually like to buy these designs, I can definitely look into it. So if that's something that you're interested in or you might be interested in the future, let me know in the comments so that way I can make plans to do that in the future. Now, if you're watching this video in the future and I have already decided that I want to print these designs, I'll make sure to leave a link somewhere in this video or in the description so that way if you're interested in purchasing a design, you can. And with that, that's it for this rebrand. Personally, I'm really happy with how this ended up, and I'm a lot more confident with this brand compared to the last one. And most importantly, I think it accomplishes the goals that I set at the beginning of this project. I know this branding isn't as creative or experimental as the last one was, but I still feel like it's very flexible and I'm still able to be creative with it, which I think is also important because as much as I want this brand to feel trustworthy and professional, I'm still a creative and a creative person, and I want to make sure that that's also reflected in this brand. So I'd love to know what you guys thought about this rebrand. Did I miss the mark or did I do a great job? Leave a comment and let me know. And of course, as always, if you found this video helpful or entertaining in any way, I'd appreciate it if you would check out the rest of my channel and then consider subscribing. I hope to see you in the next video.